Hello and welcome to the Charles County Public Library IT Department's tutorial series on 3D printing. A few weeks ago we had our first 3D printing demonstration. About 30 people showed up, and if you made it, thanks for coming. Today I'd like to delve a little bit more into how to create a 3D model. At our last demonstration, the topic came up as to if someone created a print, would the library print their 3D model for them? And I think that's an intriguing new service. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about how to go about creating those 3D models. And I definitely think the library of the future will be full of 3D printers. So we want to give you the opportunity to create some 3D models, and hopefully if it meets all the specs of our printer, we can print it out for you. So this is the first tutorial of what we hope will be a series, and this will be specifically about 3D modeling with the Sketchup software. First, I want to talk a bit about the STL file type. STL stands for stereolithography, and this is the most common file type that any 3D printer uses. The library owns an Up Mini 3D printer, and that uses the STL file type. And that's what all 3D models are converted into so that they can be rendered in plastic. Most 3D printers either use ABS or PLA plastic. ABS plastic is what ours uses, and you can think of that like Lego plastic. Now, to create your 3D modeling, I think there's a myth that it takes a lot of computing power, but we are running a variety of different 3D modeling software here in the library on computers that really don't have great specs. They're not anything fantastic. It's 2 gigs of RAM. Obviously, you need an internet connection to download the software. We're running Windows 7, but really any recent OS and really any relatively new computer can run this software with no problem. You don't need a Sperry UNIVAC supercomputer from 1960, as you can see in the picture. So there's lots of different software options for 3D modeling. Many of them are free. And specifically in this tutorial, we'll be going over SketchUp Make. SketchUp Make is great because it's kind of occupies a middle ground in 3D modeling software where you can do a lot of detail, but you can also just do simple models if you want to, pretty easily. There's also browser-based software like Tinkercad. Tinkercad's pretty neat because you can create 3D models from within your browser, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, whatever you're using. And then there's software like Blender. Blender's really for more detailed designs, and you can do some amazing things with Blender. You can create 3D animation like you would see in a Pixar film, and make STL files of your 3D models. In addition to free software, there's a lot of commercial software options. SketchUp has a pro version, which gives you more capabilities and more drawing tools and higher levels of detail. Obviously, AutoCAD Design Suite, if you're familiar with AutoCAD, is a industrial quality or commercial quality design tool. Now, if you this software that I've discussed is for creating objects from scratch, but if you want to just print something that already exists, find 3D models that someone else has already made. There's lots of 3D model libraries you can find online, or you can actually take these models, load them into 3D modeling software, and make little changes or personalize them in some way. Thingiverse is one of those. Thingiverse is run by Maker, the people who sell the MakerBot 3D printer. SketchUp has its own 3D warehouse where you can find really detailed models like Ferraris and things like that, all the way down to simple designs, simple gears and other tools like that. Umagine is another, and there's dozens of others. But as I said, today we're going to talk about just how to create a simple model using the SketchUp software. So obviously the first step is to download SketchUp Make, which is their free version from the website that we provided a few slides back. You're going to open SketchUp after it's installed. And the first time you open it, it shows you some templates. You're supposed to select a template to build, and that allows you, it gives you a scale for all of your 3D models, and also kind of gives you some control over what the modeling area is going to look like. I like to use the product design template, partially because the print area of our printer is 12 centimeters. So if I'm working in a millimeter scale, that means my models aren't too big, and I don't have to shrink them down too much to print them successfully. After you've done that, you want to go to the Window tab on the top of the software and open Extension Warehouse and search for STL. SketchUp does not come with an STL export tool out of the box. You have to install an extension, but it's pretty easy. You find the STL extension and install it, and pretty soon it'll tell you that you're ready to go, and you'll have the ability to export your model to an STL file. Next, we're just going to start with drawing a simple square. So in SketchUp, you're going to select the rectangle drawing tool. In SketchUp, you'll see across the top there's a bunch of different tools for drawing, a circle tool, a polygon tool, and if you choose the rectangle tool, I generally like to draw my models right within the place where all of the blue, green, and red vertices intersect, and you just click and drag like any drawing software, and you'll see that if you want to draw a perfect square, the software snaps to a perfect square pretty easily. And as you're drawing your square, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of your software, you'll see the dimensions of your square. There's a little box that shows how many millimeters your square is as you slowly drag it across. Once again, you want to make sure that your model isn't too big for whatever your 3D printer's print surface is. Like ours here at the library is 12 centimeters, 12 cubic centimeters. So now that you have the square, the next step is to make that square into a 3D shape. And for that, you're going to use the PushPull tool. The PushPull tool is another of those options in the bar across the top. When you click on the PushPull tool, this is really my favorite part of SketchUp, because this is where you can convert your two-dimensional shape into something with 3 dimensions. And you're just going to click on the surface of your square and then push up or down, and that kind of extrudes your square into a cube. And you can make it any size, but keep in mind, once again, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, this time your dimensions are marked distance, and that's showing you the distance that you're pulling up or pushing down your cube. And you want to be mindful of your print area once again. And that's pretty much it, sort of. As you can see, that's just a very, very bare bones demonstration. But if you think of that block that you've just created as your block of marble from which you can sculpt a masterpiece, you really have, there's no limit to what you can do from there. There's lots of, as I mentioned before, there's lots of different drawing tools you can do with freehand shapes, circles, and other things, and you can use that to add additional 3D shapes, or to reduce sections of your cube, or cut away, add to. And with those, you can really add, there's no limit to the detail you can add. Once you've created your shape and tweaked it and turned it into your masterpiece, all that's left to do is save it. Now, the first thing you want to do Before we save this as an STL file that can be exported to a 3D printer, is you do want to save a copy of your model in whatever native format your software uses. SketchUp has a native format, and if you save it in that format, then you can come back and edit your model later if you find out that there's too much detail or there's something that's not printing quite right. And that's pretty simple. You just go up to File and find Save. It's like any other software, Microsoft Word or anything like that. The next step is to export it to .stl format. And to do that, you need to select your entire model. To select it, you either triple click or you can highlight the entire model with the arrow tool. And then from there, you go to File, and instead of Save, you want to click on the Export STL option. It'll give you a couple options for saving, like the default, whether you want to use the metric system or inches, and whatever the defaults are generally fine. Make sure you give it a unique name, and from there, you're pretty much done. So you have your STL file. Now all you need to do is find a 3D printer. And lucky for you, your local public library has a 3D printer. Part 2 of this series, and as we do future tutorials, we're going to talk a little bit more about techniques for 3D printing and how to get the most out of your 3D prints, and tips and tricks that we've learned from our 3D printer. And we can do a limited number of prints. We'd love to start. We would love to start printing 3D models that you guys create. Obviously, we have certain constraints of time and space and cost. But you know, if you've created some 3D model, and you'd love to see it in real life, rendered in plastic, send your file to chartech@ccplonline.org, as you see there, and if we can print it, we'll contact you and let you know when and how to pick it up. So thanks for listening today, and hope you learned something and that you can go out there and 3D model something and make something cool. Thanks a lot, and have a good day.